Okay, we'll make a start. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining the IAA Members Forum 2024. My name is Matthew. I'm the chair of the IAA board, and I'd like to welcome you to this update for our members on what's been going on in the land of IAA. In the spirit of reconciliation, the Internet Association of Australia acknowledges the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we meet today and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this meeting. I'm speaking today from the land of the Wurundjeri people here in Melbourne, and I'd like to pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and recognise and celebrate the diversity of the Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of Australia. If you could please keep your camera and microphone muted during the opening presentation. We'll pause at various points to allow people to talk and join the conversation, but just while the presenters are presenting, if you could just keep those things muted until we invite questions, or raise your hand and let us know, or put it in the chat box. So this session will be recorded, but the open forum at the end will not be. The IAA board has adopted a code of conduct for our events. In the basics, be respectful, be accepting and supporting of others to participate. Non-compliant attendees will be removed. You may appeal, but you probably won't be readmitted at this time. The agenda for today, we have some members' survey feedback from the members who've sent stuff into us. We have an IX update, a portal update, policy and advisory update, a bit about events program, and then at the end, an opportunity just for an open forum. But if you do have questions throughout the session, please ask, raise your hand, let us know. So I'll pass over to Narelle to say hello and talk about the survey results we had.
Yeah, hi everybody. It's really great to be here with you today. Look, we only received 3 responses and they're all from corporate members. Basically, they covered across a couple of things, basically our port pricing strategy and our VLL positioning. So just quickly on the port pricing strategy, our positioning of the products that we sell hasn't changed. So we haven't changed the prices at all. So we position that pricing to reflect a good quality product and to make sure that we've got a good level of cost recovery in place to fund all of our activities, and make sure that we can properly support the product, support the platform and the network. If we can't afford to pay people to be on call, then we can't have people on call. And we think that's really important to make sure that we support this platform as well as we possibly can. With regard to our IVLL platform, what we do there is really just to try and get some cost recovery for our intercapital network. We need a certain amount of capacity in order to make sure we've got enough to fill the caches. But beyond that, we're not in the market to try and compete with members at all. We're simply trying to do a little bit of cost recovery to make it a nice, even set of prices. That's all. The old pricing that we had was just not competitive. It was a stupid price. No one really wanted to buy it. So we needed to bring that pricing down just to make sure it was on par with the rest of the market. And really, that's all I've got on that front, folks. If there's any questions, please honestly feel free to post them now or send them my way later. Back to you, Matt.
I've got another slide for you, Narelle, for you.
Oh, well, this one was simply, this is the mechanisms that we use to communicate. If you're not getting any messages from us about either member forums or anything else, then it could be that you've unsubscribed. Unfortunately, at the moment, the only way we can do it is like a bulk unsubscribe. You unsubscribe to everything or you subscribe to everything. So that for our emails. The rest of it is really communications via our social media platforms. We're mainly using LinkedIn and Facebook at the moment. Twitter has become a bit of a cesspool, so we're not really using it anymore. But mainly we get a lot of good feedback on LinkedIn and Facebook, so we use all of that. So please come to our events, tell us what you think. And soon, hopefully with the portal, we'll have a bunch of different options, so you'll be able to subscribe to different things and unsubscribe to the stuff you don't want to get. That's it. Honestly, again, any questions, post them in the chat or put your hand up or ping us. Back to you, Matt.
Thanks, Narelle. Okay, I have a bit of an organisational update. I'm going to be very brief with this, mostly because we have the experts from our staff actually going to be talking about what they've actually done. So don't want to steal their thunder, But I do want to point out that 400 gig has finally launched in Sydney. Nick will have details about how that's all been put together, but it's really great to finally have that in place. But we also have plans to upgrade other exchanges as demand arrives for places like other exchanges. So if you've got a particular need, we're happy to talk about it. And if you're looking at a new location that we're not in, come talk to us. And over time, when we see demand arrive, we'll also be launching 400 gig in other locations. Just not quite, there's no demand yet for it in other locations. So we'll just keep that in our pocket for now. Automation and portal has been a key focus, and Nick will be talking about that and the great work that our developers have been doing to automate and improve things for us, as well as just make things easier for you guys. Really pleased to see that we launched TasIX this year. I didn't make it down myself, but it was a good event, and it's going to be an interesting location. The Tasmanian government is very keen to see this work well. So I think over time, there's a potential for this to grow quite significantly and be a really good asset for internet communication in Tasmania. So it's really pleasing that we've got that launched. SAIX is finally billing. It's now recovering some of the costs that we actually incur to run the exchange. And there's definitely good value down there. There's some really good cloud providers in that location and really good content to share. So encourage you if you're in South Australia to have a good look at it. It's been really worthwhile for a lot of businesses and members down there so far. But a key success in our business is our staff. The work they do to provide a great service to all of our members is really good, but also the fact that we are providing a great place for them to work. And we have once again been recertified as a great place to work as part of the survey process that we've gone through. So it's really good to see that the staff want to work here and they're doing such a great job at it at the same time.
Matt,
Narelle wants to say something there.
I did also want to flag that we have to change the MSA soon. So the Master Services Agreement between members, it's too out of date, and we are going through a process of reviewing it and making sure we've got all the process in place to support updating to a new one. So I just want to flag that to those members present, that we will have to change our Master Services Agreement with all the corporate members coming up soon. We're working it through, and it'll land pretty soon, I hope.
The board has been very busy. We're meeting every 2 months now and doing quite a bit around strategy. Finance committee has been meeting monthly, keeping an eye on things and also helping to prepare the budget and get that approved for 2024-25. Tech committee has been meeting to discuss member demand for new locations, as well as looking at our longer term plan with technology refreshes and acting as a sounding board for staff on ideas there, as well as trying to provide information from members back to feed that process. We have finalised our budget for next year. We're also looking at what the next generation might look like on the board. I know there's at least one board member who is planning to retire at this next election, so there will be some vacancies available. So if you're interested in joining the board and finding out how an IX runs as an organisation and how to support the growth of this IX, please come and talk to us, because we'd be very interested to have a conversation with you and see if that might be something you're interested in doing. Which leads me very on to the bit that most people are interested in, which is Nick and the tech update. So Nick.
Thanks, Matt. Can you hear me?
I can.
Cool. I've been fighting Zoom a little bit too much this morning. It's not fun.
You want to fight your camera as well?
Yeah, one sec. Let's see if it just works for me. I think I even have the background ready. I can't see self-view. I hope the background's correct, but let's just quickly...
we see you with your normal background, nothing coming through. That's all good. You look like
a
real person.
I'm even wearing a shirt. I had a that'll do for now. I had a background. I'm pretty sure I said it, but I just don't know where it went. Okay, so we have been busy. We've done quite a lot in New South Wales, and I wanted to call New South Wales out on its own slide because we've done a lot of work here as part of the 400 gig upgrades, which I'm hoping to talk more with you about, Matt, when we do that next thing in June, I think. But we've got the 400 gig core installed now, and we installed 2 24-port Aristas into 3 key IXs, or sorry, into 3 key sites there in SID1 Global Switch and SID3. We chose those sites because SID3 doesn't really have the demanders to 100 gig ports that the other sites do have, and it wasn't a good use of money to waste putting some switches there that won't see usage when Equinix have decent campus cross connects between them, but we will be leaving 100 gig boxes in SID3 as 10 gig access nodes for redundancy with uplinks into Global Switch and SID1 to keep it nice, happy, and redundant, but looking to slowly move the large pile of 100 gig ports over to the redundant switches in SID1 just to keep the big ports away from the 10 gig access nodes to keep uplinks nice and happy. As part of that, we put a new fiber path in from SID1 to Global Switch. That fiber path is a lot shorter than the existing one. The previous one was probably about 45 Ks, which required some DWDM kit on there to light it at 100 gig effectively, just to get some room around it. Then we had the new link that came in, which is about 23 kilometers, which means we can throw dual 400 gig optics straight down there without causing a problem. So we've been able to upgrade the backbone to dual 400 gigs in a redundant format between redundant switches in each site, which has been phenomenal. We are looking to move to LR1 as our default optic for 100 gig in Sydney at minimum, where we can break out from 400 gig ports, which will give us a lot more capacity for those higher port speeds, meaning given that we've got 96 of them per 24 port switch just ready to go. Vocus SID1, we will be sunsetting. There are still only 3 people left there. We won't be upgrading the box there at this point in time. It's doing what it needs to do, and we're hoping that that box just gets turned off with the site, and we'll support that until Vocus have kicked the last person out. And the last thing that we've done in Sydney is we've removed a couple of the older 670s, and we're looking over the next 12 months or so to remove the remaining ones around Sydney. And if we can get to it, the remaining ones around Brisbane and Melbourne as well, which will be really quite nice. Not really much to say about that, but they don't support the new features of eVPN, VXLAN stuff that we want to look to, and getting them out of the network to something that's newer and supported will be much nicer. Is there any questions on the New South Wales side of things? There's quite a lot that had gone on in the last 12 months, and it's going to be a busy 12 months as well.
Oh, question without notice for you, Nick. You've mentioned there the LR1 optics. I know that a lot of internet exchanges around the world are moving to that direction. Just for those of us who aren't necessarily aware of why, do you want to explain briefly why and what you're seeing in the industry?
Yeah, sure. So when we put the 32 port 100 gig switches in, it was really easy to move people away from the 10 gig 48 port the 48 by 10 gig switches, purely because the optics were interchangeable on the 100 gig breakouts. But with LR1 and LR4 100 gig, LR4 has 4 lanes of 25 gig to make a 4 lanes of 25 gig to make a 100 gig port, whereas LR1 has a single lane at 100 gig. The 400 gig switches that we've put in, and all 400 gig switches on the market, are made up of 4 100 gig lanes, and you can't unfortunately split those lanes into 25 gig, which means you can't convert a 400 gig port into 4
100 gig.
16 25 gig lanes to give you 4 lanes per LR4 optic, which means they've done it in a way now. So I was really unprepared for this. I do have notes, but they're not in front of me, Matt. It lets us break out from the 400 gig ports into 100 gig ports on that node. And it just means we get much better density, and we get much better effective use of those switches, because we don't have to fill them with 400 gig ports. We can fill them with 100 gig ports. The other nicety about that is the optics are simpler to make, which means they are cheaper to buy than LR4 optics. Less lanes, less parts, less mirrors, less things to go wrong, which is one of the big benefits that we see as well. They are on existing tech, so the lanes are
Sorry.
Still there. I was reading Daryl's comment because that is one thing that I should go over as well. The lanes on the 400 gig ports are completely lost that thought now from Daryl. So what Daryl has said is also correct, is the 400 gig boxes support 4 100 gig LR1s or 2 100 gig LR4 optics at maximum. So by moving to LR1 optics, we get double the density of those switches and can use those ports to their full extent, which is the big benefit from that. For members, yeah.
Yeah, so members wise, it's a cheaper optic, and it means that we get better density on our side, which means that it keeps our pricing down. So win-win for everybody. Yeah,
but from a technical point, when they went from 48 by 10 to 32 by 100 gig switches, the optics were compatible. So you could move people over, which we have done, from the 48 by 10 gig switches to the 32 by 100 gig switches to get that density of 120 pairs per 1 IU versus 48 ports per 1 IU. It's unfortunate that in this instance, we just can't do that.
Anyway, I've distracted you enough. I'll let you go on to your next slide.
Yeah, so the next one is half of everything else, the intercap network. We did a lot of work to the intercap network in 2023, 2024. As Narelle pointed out before, we were able to drastically reduce the prices to not be leading, but to be similar with everyone else on a cost recovery basis by getting rid of a lot of the wave services that we have with the incumbent telcos. We were able to take some scalable ports with a provider and get redundant 100 gig NNIs in most states with switched circuits on top of that. So it did reduce the MTU of what we could offer. It didn't reduce it enough to be an issue because our VLLs are still clamped at 9100. But what it means is we can now scale our intercap as cache fill is required, which happened on day one. We went and we scoped the works and we did it all, and we did the installation using the numbers that we had on hand. And then Cat Video host number 3 had decided that was the day that they were going to start turning their caches on again. And we started getting alerts for our intercap links being above what we've purchased. So we're going through an upgrade process now on them to work out what we need to keep them at and where they need to sit at. But just by doing that, we got a significant reduction in cost because we no longer had like 12 cross connects around Sydney to support the intercap network around here, and bundling 10 gigs was a tricky thing with load balancing as well, given that a few people are starting to do larger than 10 gig streams over that intercap. We had to have bigger ports, and we can support that now, and we can support bigger speeds, which is quite nice. But they're delivered as essentially as what we were buying before. They're just packet switched instead of wave. It doesn't do much of anything. The LSPs are all statically pinned to the paths that we want them on. They're all where they need to be. That's basically that intercap.
Cool. And everything else you've been up to?
Everything else we've been up to is there we go. We deployed P2. A1 is on schedule for deployment once they've completed that. Unfortunately, NextDC have now told me as of, I think, Friday of last week or something, that they won't be hitting that target in August that they initially said. I'm still waiting for another date from them. We're going to double down on removing all of the old hardware. We're going to remove all of or as many of the 670s we can. They still have a couple of little bugs. Unfortunately, Extreme don't support that really old model anymore, and we can't get updates to fix one of the little problems that we have, which is cosmetic, but doesn't really matter. We're going to be looking at EVPN once we've got those boxes out of the network, which will simplify traffic engineering, which would have made that one, like that intercap project, redundant. Could we have done some decent traffic engineering? We would have been able to shift things around as needed. But that was the other way to solve this problem while we couldn't do that. We have shut down Burst as of Monday this week. It was a nice ping of death when we turned it off, and it just stopped responding, which was cool. Unfortunately, that one was still running Ubuntu. I think from memory, it might have been 10 or 12. And given the issues in jumping from Apache 2.2 to 2.4, it was not worth it to try and do a dist upgrade on that box to bring it up to speed. People were wanting features like SSL and SNI that we just couldn't support on there because it was just too old. But I don't know about you. I struggle with a 200-line Apache config. I didn't want to look at a 38,000-line Apache config and try and convert that from 2.2 to 2.4. It wasn't possible to security upgrade the box, and its use was just dwindling to people that really, after we surveyed everyone, just cared about having access to their email addresses that they'd had for quite a long time. So we have moved email hosting for Burst to Cloudflare forwarding. You can't send from that. However, emails that are sent to that address will be forwarded to a mailbox of your choosing or of anyone's choosing to do that. We're going to support that for 5 years for people, so we're not just turning emails off straight away. We will be registering the domain for 10 years and holding on to it after that, just so that there's no chance of someone gaining access to somebody's account. We feel like that should be enough time for people to be able to move things off of that platform so that we can probably sunset them. And we're starting to look into Quilt open caching as a way to get more content into the IXs. So the Quilt caches are an open thing that are not by an organization such as Facebook or Google or anything. And video hosts like Disney and Channel 7 and Channel 9 use them to deploy caching traffic around the location. And we want to try and get in on that so that we can deliver some more content to some more locations and just add more caching capacity over the next year.
Awesome.
And I think that's that for the network.
And onto the portal.
Oh, yeah, that whole thing. Portal's nice and quick. Last member forum we were talking about replacing the back end of Nova into Filament. We did that. That was a couple of really large commits. There was a lot of files to change, and so far the feedback from staff has been positive. There's a lot of benefits to this in the event section that Cameron has worked into, and I just wanted to call that out specifically because he's done an absolutely fantastic job making it easy for people to get to our events and making it easier for staff. We no longer have to have paper forms for people that walk in. We've got a QR code that people can scan now that takes to the portal to just grab details of who's walking in on the fly. Moving forward, we have NZIX coming on, and we have billing. So we've got 2 devs, and one's working on billing and one is working on NZ. The plan for NZ is to get them migrated into the new portal so that they can benefit from the automation bits that we're working from, benefit from the billing bits that we're working on, and benefit from having a supported platform that just is overall better. And the billing changes that we're working on is basically taking ownership of invoicing through the portal from Xero, so that Xero is no longer authoritative about our invoices. At the moment, we've got 2 different sources of information for billing data. One is the portal and one is Xero. They don't align. We are working on aligning that as part of this project and transferring everything seamlessly across, but just making sure that the portal is that point of ownership for our data and removing that reliance on Xero to send and generate invoices is going to be much nicer on our billing team. And it's just to try and remove some of that manual work that they have to do for every upgrade and downgrade. But it means that we can do things like support the automation so that we can actually process upgrades when payments get made to invoices that get issued due to an upgrade or something like that. And yes, it also does mean that we can do things like suspend services when bills don't get paid automatically without having to worry about that being too much of a manual thing. Not that we really have that much of a problem here at the moment anyway. And then just to touch on the automation, we, by Q2 2025, so essentially 12 months from now, we're looking at having the majority of provisioning for additions do services through the portal completed automatically via the tooling and pipeline systems that we build. And we're also aiming to have more debugging data into the portal from there as well. So things like optic information from ports that you've got, or routes that you're receiving from, or routes that we're receiving on the route service from the route service per service showing up in the portal under the service as well. So it'll be one stop to see everything about that service instead of having the looking glass and metrics and all of those other systems in place, like the support ticket system to get optic details and other bits and pieces like that. And that's basically that for the portal now.
Thanks very much, Nick.
Thank you.
I've now made us run a bit late, so I'm going to move straight on to the next one. But if you do have a question, please put it into the chat, and I'll invite Sophia.
Thanks, Matt. So quickly from me, there's been a lot of work for us in the public policy space because there's heaps going on in terms of regulatory changes going on in the telco sector. We made 19 submissions, and this included wrinkling out the final elements of the NBN SAU, things to do with online safety, the new carriage service provider register that's being proposed by government, as well as relating to a financial hardship standard, which is now live. And alongside these formal public consultations, we've also been extensively involved in a working group that includes other industry representatives, as well as the Department of Home Affairs and Communications, to discuss changes to in relation to the security of critical infrastructure and how that's going to work for the telco sector, which will also result in changes into the overarching telco legislation as well. And so that we can expect more things to be happening in this space in the next 6 to 12 months or so. And we've also been involved in a consultative group regarding lawful interception. Again, we can expect changes to telco's electronic surveillance framework requirements, but we've been trying to provide input to government in that space. In terms of industry events, in August last year, we attended the Asia Pacific Regional Internet Governance Forum, and Narelle also spoke there. Was part of the panel there, speaking about labeling for IoT devices, but discussing internet governance issues and as well as how this is going to impact Australian policy. Earlier this year in March, alongside the IETF, we attended a policymakers meeting where we met with lots of government representatives, and our reputation as an industry representative for smaller ISPs and smaller carriage service providers has really grown, and we do really feel like we have a better we're being better recognized amongst government folk as playing this role, and we're being actively sought out for various inquiries that affect the telco sector. To assist our members comply with new legislation, we've released a couple of guidance materials. So this includes the online safety codes. So this is specific requirements that relate to internet service providers in relation to harmful content online. And also recently, with the new financial hardship standard that came into effect from 29th of March, so very recent, something that affects our members. We've created another guidance material on the financial hardship standard, but we've also commissioned our lawyers to provide free legal templates to help members comply with their obligations under this new standard. So members can access that material as well as all of our other legal templates via the portal. We obviously could not have done this work alone, so big thanks to our public policy advisory panel who meet with us on a quarterly basis to discuss upcoming issues and help inform our submissions. And I also really want to use this opportunity to encourage other members to all join the panel, or even if you can't commit to joining the panel and commit to the quarterly meetings, we're also more than happy to have members join us on a meeting-to-meeting basis. So depending on what sort of consultations and what sort of telco issues are currently being considered by government, you can let us know to join the meeting to discuss that. And we always publish on our website what open consultations are going on each month. So please get in touch if you want to get involved, or if you know someone whose contributions to our advocacy effort would be helpful. In terms of upcoming issues, following the Optus outage review report that was released only last week, in the government response, government accepted all 18 recommendations made by the review And many of this will relate to the creation of new codes, new standards, new determination, or changes to existing legislation, and particularly surrounding 000 systems. Now, most of these do relate to carriers, but there is also a big chance that some will affect carriage service providers. For example, one of the recommendations is to reform the complaint handling standard, which applies to CSPs as well as carriers, and this will likely be reformed in the next 12 months. Just as an example that our advocacy work actually do matter and really do make a difference, we were quite glad to note that one of the recommendations as part of this review, recommendation 17, which recommends Australian governments to review arrangements for maintaining their own operations, including accounting for telecommunications redundancy. This recommendation does, at least in part, seem to be influenced by our submission to the review, where we noted that it's not just fair on industry to bear the burden, and government should also be recognizing the nature of telco services, the fact that they can and will go down. And so government also needs to prepare for worst case scenarios, including having telco redundancy for systems like its transportation networks. In other news, the Telco Consumer Protections Code is currently under review. The Comms Alliance Working Group is expected to submit its draft of the TCP code to the review body, which includes the ACMA and the ACCC and others, by the end of this month, so by the end of May. And then this will be subject to a public consultation, which I'm sure that we'll respond to. And this is a really big overhaul of the TCP code and part of a broader move that we're seeing in the policy space, where regulators are really pushing for direct regulation as opposed to industry regulation. And so this is going to likely have big ramifications for members. So again, a space to watch. Like I mentioned, the Security of Critical Infrastructure Act, there are going to be changes to current security obligations. For example, new risk management program rules being switched on. And we've worked really hard to carve out exemptions for smaller carriage service providers, and we're pretty hopeful that this will actually come into effect, but we will have to wait for the drafting to be completed. Online Safety Act, there's a big review into the Online Safety Act that's currently an open consultation with submissions due on the 21st of June. And we're also expecting further work in relation to privacy legislation to implement the recommendations that were made last year alongside the final report that came out last year. And this will be relevant for members in terms of what technical information might capture or might be defined as to be considered personal information, as well as changes to the small business exemption, which we imagine a lot currently captures a lot of our members. Also, there is the CSP register, which was a consultation that was held around December or late last year, and we haven't heard back from government as of yet, but we do know that there is a real push to have a register for carriage service providers. So this is also something to watch out for. So yeah, it seems like there's a lot going on in the year ahead. So like I said, please get in touch if you have anything to share, or if you want us to focus our advocacy efforts on a particular issue that affects you. We really appreciate everyone's input. But yeah, that's it. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Sophia. And over to Narelle to talk about events.
Great. First slide, Matt, please. I'll do this super quick. We've been holding a whole stack of events over the last year, folks, and we continue to do so. We really get a lot of great feedback on it. Click next. Thanks, will you, Matt? Everybody seems to think the events are great, so please turn up, enjoy. They're a great way to just catch up. Yeah, we had 14 in-person ones and 4 online. We sponsor a bunch of external events and attend a bunch of external events as well, really to fly the flag, to promote our interests, to promote member interests, to make sure we get the word out about how good peering is and how good we are as an association. Find you all some new friends and comrades and work colleagues to work with. Yeah, we're still running the Sisters program. The Sisters program gets massively positive feedback and recognition across the industry. People really appreciate the career development sessions that they get and the presentation skills training they get within the workshops. And we really appreciate the sponsorship we get from the various other organisations around the place that help us bring the women to AusNog each year. Next slide, Matt. So this year we've done a bunch of great events. We had a really good launch of TasIX in Tasmania, and had a really good time down there, catching up with people, talking about various bits of technology. I'll tell you what, some of our members have got some great home automation systems in place, so hopefully we'll get some good events out of them. We've got one on tonight. If you're in Sydney, please make sure you can come to that. Next slide, please, Matt. Yeah, here's the summary of the events we've got coming up. We will be doing Sisters again at the beginning of September. I've just got to work our way through the applications. We've got a pile of really good applicants again this year. We'll be doing another couple of Convergent webinar events. We've done one already on emergencies. We'll do it on upgrades. And the last one is on a topic I've completely forgotten. Go back, Matt. Let me just keep flogging the existing events.
Sorry, you're telling me to click
Of
next.
course. We will have end of year celebrations around the end of the year, and a couple more socials throughout the year too. One coinciding with the launch of A1 in Adelaide. So that one should be a good one to catch up with. We'll be attending some other events. I'm presenting at the Data Centre Real Estate Summit in a few weeks' time. So if you've got any thoughts or things that you think I should be saying about data centres over the decades in Australia, please let me know. That would be really helpful. It'll be a better presentation for it. Yep, they're all the rest of the ones where we'll be at this year. Okay, that's it from me. Of course, any question? Actually, one last thing I did want to say was Sophia's guidance material on both the TCP code, but the financial standard stuff, folks, on our in the member portal. That material is excellent. It will really help you deliver your services within your business. So please have a look at that. She's done a great job with it, and all feedback you can give us on the events, on the association, on our policy positions will be helpful. So please let us know what you think. And the reviews that are coming up on the TCP code and the risk stuff, that is significant and will hit people across the industry. So please, we'll keep attending and you keep telling us what you think. I'm done. Go for it, Matt.
Yeah, and I'll second that and just say, as a small business owner who actually uses these resources in terms of presentations and stuff that come out from the IAA and the guidance material, it's really helpful, and it really just helps you stay on top of what's going on. So if you're an up and coming ISP or working in the telco industry, well worth paying attention to it and getting some support from IAA, because it's an interesting industry and it's a lot of things going on. So well worth getting involved. So second last slide, but Members Forum, open forum. So we've presented a bit about what we've been up to, and I'd like to invite anybody who is on the call today. We're going to turn the recording off now, I believe.